Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Rachel and this is What's for Dinner. We're starting off on Sunday. My daughter and my sweet grandson Sawyer and I were out at flea markets and farmers market. We had so much fun checking out all the cool stuff. While we were out, I had some steaks in the fridge at home marinating so that I could make those for dinner later. I picked up some fingerling potatoes and some hot honey. Later, I just washed up and trimmed those fingerling potatoes and then drizzled some olive oil, some Italian seasoning, and some minced garlic on them. I did add some salt and pepper as well. And all I did was make sure that all of the potatoes were coated, and then I just popped them into the oven and baked them until they were tender and the outside was nice and crispy. Just kept it nice and simple. Then I got my steaks out of the fridge and just let them sit for a few minutes to come to room temperature, and they would be ready to go when we needed to get them started. I did give these potatoes a turn and just made sure they were coated about halfway through the cooking process. I was a little worried that my guys would not like purple potatoes, but they absolutely love them. And so for another side dish, I am just making some canned corn that I put in some butter, and then I just kind of just added some of that hot honey. This is chili pepper infused honey, and it is sweet and spicy and just really made this corn extra tasty. We just happened to have some mushrooms that needed to be used up, so that worked out perfectly. I just sauteed those mushrooms up in some olive oil with some onion that I had also had in my fridge already chopped. I added a little bit of minced garlic into the pan and then just let them do their thing. We love mushrooms and onions on our steaks, so this worked out perfectly. Once the onions and mushrooms were cooked, I just moved them into a bowl, added some more olive oil, and added my steaks right into the same pan to get them cooked up. And I am a repeat offender of overcrowding my pans, but it does all work out usually. It does require some moving around and rearranging your steaks, but I must get lucky because these turned out very delicious. The guys around here like their steaks well done, and sometimes it's really hard to get a steak well done and have it be tender, but it is how they turned out on this night, so I was really thrilled about that. So now it's time to plate up. So I have my potatoes there on the side, and I'm adding a couple scoops of that corn. I do have a little dish with some steak sauce in it. I wasn't sure if I would need it because I prefer my steaks medium rare, but I usually end up eating a well done steak at home because I don't like to do mine separate. Like I said, I crowd it all in there. But everything on this plate turned out perfectly flavorful and didn't need any dipping sauce or extra salt. Mondays can be rough, but this one was super rough for me because my allergies were kicking in on 100. Dinner was basically corn dogs in the air fryer and Campbell's chicken noodle soup heated up on the stove. With all the eye and nose drainage that I was going through, the soup sounded good to me and everyone else was calling for a corn dog, so that's how that combination came to be. This week we skipped right over Tuesday on our dinner rotations because that's my late night to work, and sometimes I just don't plan anything and let the guys do whatever. So on Wednesday I found a bag that had leftover chili in it in the freezer, so I am just warming that up in my pan, and I'm just adding more beans and more tomatoes and more chili seasoning mix to it. I almost always have leftovers from dinner, and since we don't like to eat leftovers, I usually just put them in Ziploc baggies, flatten them down, and then stick them in my freezer for a later date. And since I know my family probably picked out all the good stuff the first time around, I just add more ingredients like these onions and beans and just kind of give it life again. If you watched last week's video, then you know that I mentioned I thought I was making chili last week in our crock pot, but the bag wasn't labeled and it was actually Sloppy Joe's, which is fine. I knew I had chili in there and that I would get to it eventually, and so I was really happy to have it on hand and be able to find it. I really should label my bags, but I am in no way the most organized person that you'll ever meet. Ha ha ha. So here I'm just adding some cheese and a little bit of dried cilantro to my bowl of chili. This actually turned out really good, and I think that it actually tasted better the second time around. I had made some taquitos in our air fryer because the boys are not really big on chili. They will eat it, but it's not their favorite. But I decided to have a couple of those taquitos as well and just dipped it right into my chili, and it was really a good alternative to like crackers or cornbread. My husband and sons must have some need that they need filled because they actually asked for these types of frozen convenience foods, and that's not the norm around here, but I'm not one to judge and I want to keep them happy, so that's what's for dinner. And speaking of frozen convenience foods, this time it was me. I knew I had a bag of chicken strips in my freezer, and I have been wanting some chicken wraps, and I just kind of was looking for a quick and easy meal that I could put together really quick, like fast. Wanted it done and over with. So here you see that I am picking around a head of lettuce that was left over in the fridge, and there were some spots that were bad, and like I said, I just picked around everything that wasn't good and then chopped up the rest. I chopped up an onion. I had some flour tortillas in my bread drawer, and so I just got those out and then started layering my ingredients. I had my chicken in my air fryer getting all nice and crispy, and so I just added a couple of those strips onto each tortilla. And then I had some ranch dressing that I made up using some sour cream, a little mayo, and a Hidden Valley Ranch dressing packet. And so I'm just scooping some of that on there, and I'm just going to add a little bit of sliced cheese to this one because it was my husband's and he likes sliced cheese instead of shredded cheese. The rest of us like shredded cheese, but he has to be different, of course. And so once I get them rolled up into nice little fat wraps, I just put them on my George Foreman grill that I sprayed with some non-stick cooking spray, and then just got them nice and toasty. This was such an easy meal and so quick to put together using those frozen chicken strips. So it was perfect for a weeknight dinner when you just need to keep it quick and simple. I just continued to make the rest of the chicken wraps, and here I did add some bacon pieces to this one. I totally forgot on my husband's, but he didn't care. Anyway, so the rest of them did have some bacon pieces as well as the ranch and the cheese and the lettuce. And then the rest of us did not have onions on ours. That was just something that he likes. So anyway, you can custom make these any way you want to. I ended up having some cottage cheese on the side. Can you tell I just wasn't really in the mood to cook very much this week? So anyway, that's how our wraps turned out. This is mine. I do very little lettuce on my foods, so it looks like there isn't any, but there is. These wraps turned out so good, and I love using my George Foreman grill. Let me know if you still have one. I don't know if anyone still uses them, but I sure do. On Friday, I finally started feeling like I was getting my life together because I had a plan for the day for dinner. I just sprayed my crock pot down with some nonstick spray, and I'm just going to load it up with some country-style ribs. This is 6:30 in the morning before work, me getting dinner ready in the crock pot. Now, if I were more organized and had it even more together, I would have had this ready the night before or the week before in a bag with some seasonings and whatnot. But that's not who I am. So right now I have a lot of ADHD and menopause brain fog going on in my life. So I don't know. I have my excuses. But whatever, as long as dinner is taken care of, it just doesn't really matter how it comes to be. So here I'm just putting in some spices, just some basic stuff here. Some garlic powder, some salt, pepper, and for us, crushed red chili flakes. And so then since I'm doing 2 packs of these ribs, I'm just going to give them a turn, make sure that this package is seasoned really good, and then go ahead and do the next and repeat those seasonings. Country style ribs have a lot of fat on them, so they're going to make a lot of grease, and so I'm going to drain that off of these when I get home from work, or maybe even on my lunch break. So I want to make sure that I season them really well, because a lot of that seasoning is going to be drained off of them. I will be covering them with a Asian sauce, but I want to make sure that that meat is seasoned through as it's cooking as well. I had this little cheap bottle of Great Value honey flavored barbecue sauce in the back of my pantry, so I'm going to add that in there as well. I just want as much flavor as I can get during the cooking process, because I'm going to pour it all off and then put another sauce on top of them. It's just what I felt like doing on this day. Sometimes I'll move the ribs from the crock pot and then put them on the grill and then sauce them up there. But these days I am barely cooking and I'm not trying to do anything with a lot of extra steps. So for the sauce, when I got home, I just put some brown sugar in a bowl, added a good amount of soy sauce, a big scoop of minced garlic, and of course we like our spice, so a big spoonful of crushed red pepper flakes and a little bit of lemon juice. I made a cornstarch slurry with some water and cornstarch, added that to my sauce as well, and then I came back in with a little bit of that hot honey and added that as well, and then let that simmer in my crock pot for a little while. I had already drained off the other juices and it was full to the top with like the grease from earlier. And so I got rid of that and then just added that Asian flavored sauce, and in a skillet I just heated up some bacon grease and added some chopped up cabbage. I'm just adding some salt and some garlic powder and some pepper, and that's basically all that's going into this simple side dish. I had a couple other options that I could have made, like some canned green beans or some broccoli, but I needed the broccoli for a different dish, and my can opener is just giving me fits lately, so I just went for the fresh cabbage. And here's how those ribs turned out. They were nice and sticky, sweet and hot, just the way we like them, very tender. I did make up some Kraft macaroni and cheese, and that was it for the sides. On Saturday, I wanted to make copycat quesadilla burgers like they have at Applebee's, and I stumbled across these taco burgers. Apparently, they are going viral on TikTok or something, but I wouldn't know anything about that because I don't really do TikTok. But I went ahead and watched a few videos, and to begin with, you just take your hamburger meat and just spread it out on top of a tortilla. And I used my rolling pin to get the meat really, really thin, because you want this to be able to cook all the way through in about 2 minutes. I just laid a piece of wax paper down in between the meat and the rolling pin, and then used the wax paper in between each tortilla as well. And I just took my fingers and ripped off the the meat that went over the edge of the tortillas and then just put that back in and filled in any gaps. Once the hamburger meat was spread out all over the tortilla, I just seasoned it up with some garlic powder, salt, and pepper. I just did the same thing on all of the tortillas. I made 8 of these. And I like using the rolling pin so that each tortilla has the same amount of meat at the same thickness so that they all cook up at the same time. This is just the side view so you get some kind of idea how thin the meat is on this tortilla. Once these tortillas are all prepared, I just laid them meat side down on my electric griddle, and then I used one of my little cast iron skillets to lay on top just to add that pressure and kind of smash them down. I was hoping that this would help the hamburger meat not to shrink up too bad. So I just made sure that I smashed each burger down really good so that all of that liquid would squish out of it. I just flipped each one of these burgers over so that the other side of that tortilla could cook in that grease from the hamburger. And then you just let them continue to cook until your tortilla is nice and crispy brown. Then it's time to sprinkle on the cheese, and you can use any kind of cheese that you want. This is just what we had on hand. And now it's time to plate up. I just added some lettuce and some mustard and ketchup. I laid out some chopped onions and some mayo. You can do anything you want with these. Some pickles or some sliced tomatoes would be good. And when you're done putting your toppings on, you just fold them up like a taco. These smash burger quesadillas were so good. We'll definitely be making these again. And we just made some tater tots to have on the side. And that is what was for dinner. We love making homemade ice cream, so I decided it was time to get the ice cream maker out of the cabinet and make some Butterfinger ice cream. To start off, I'm just pouring in a whole can of sweetened condensed milk. Then I added 2 cups of heavy whipping cream. I also added 2 cups of whole milk, and then I just added another 2 cups of half and half because this recipe is doubled and I only had 2 cups of milk and it called for 4 to make a double recipe. So I just filled in with the half and half. I added a little bit of salt, and then I just poured in some vanilla. I did not measure, I just poured in what sounded good. And then I put the lid on, turned on my machine, and just let it start churning. I just keep the bowl to this ice cream maker in the freezer at all times so that it's always frozen and ready to go. And while the ice cream is getting started, I just got busy getting these Butterfinger candy bars unwrapped, and I just put them all into a gallon size zipper bag. And these are, I think, the king size candy bars, and I have 3 of them. And then I'm just going to take a mallet and crush them up into small chunks. It only takes about 10 or 15 minutes before the ice cream really starts to take shape, and then that's when I like to add my candy pieces or my bits of fruit or whatever it is I want to add into my ice cream, and then I just let it mix in. This really is a simple way to make homemade ice cream, and you can make so many different varieties. And we think it tastes so much better than store-bought. And this is about the stage in the process where I move it into a bowl and put it into the freezer to finish setting up. Then later on after dinner, we will have a nice, cool, delicious dessert. And that's it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.